What is up, fight fans? It is 6 o'clock in the Mile High, so you know what that means. It is time for the MMA Plug presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz, sitting here alongside the Big Yin's Josh Fremd. You can give him a follow at Josh Fremd MMA. Give me a follow online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery. Shout out to the guys with the afternoon drive. That's Cody and Anilo. They are the go-to information source for all of the big foreign sports out there. Also, make sure that you check out all of the great content that's going out right now on milehighsports.com, as well as the fresh edition of the new Mile High Sports magazine. Josh, it was a pretty good weekend all the way around in MMA this last weekend. Definitely some controversy, but a good weekend overall.
It was a good weekend. You know, we had the Colorado Combat Club out in Aurora at the Stampede. Was absolutely phenomenal. I can't speak today. It's Danny's fault. I can't help it. I saw that he has his hat on. I'm not sure if he still has his long hair or not, and it's making me question things. But it was a great weekend.
No, it's gone.
No way!
I'm sorry.
No way! All right, we're going to get back to that.
Circling back, putting a pin in that one right there.
Putting a pin in that one. And, yeah, great UFC card. Some things, happen, but overall it's a great weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Circling back to Colorado Combat Club 15, it was a smashing success this last weekend. It was a great atmosphere overall for our final show at the Stampede, where we saw 3 incredible pro fights on the main card. We had 2 great elimination title fights and nonstop action all the way down to finishes from the first fight. Unfortunately, there was a little controversy in one of the fights, though, also, that was
Kurtzy,
called
what is that
no contest due to a strike to the back of the head, which the call was incorrect. Now it's been seen, but Colorado only allows for replay in pro fights, so we weren't allowed to go to the tape to show the officials what we saw, in that Daniel Agri made Ian Cotton Candy Varela tap to strikes again.
That's 2, that's far shooter.
Now, Varela acted hurt while he was leaving the cage, but then he tried to hop the guardrail and fight someone in the crowd. Now, listen, son, you had your choice to fight in the cage, or you had your chance to fight in the cage. You started the fight on your knees and you proceeded to get ragdolled. Now, you tapped again to strikes. That's 2 fights in a row that you've done this. I thought that after Rocky Nava broke your face and Daniel Agri had his way with you, that you'd have took the lessons and you'd have learned to grow from them. But you chose to go the opposite route and take to social media, call Daniel a cheater, tag the promotion up, tag his team up, which just simply wasn't the case. He beat your ass into literal submission. Now, before the action was stopped, you tapped twice, and it's clear on video. You asked, where's the tape? It is out now. So I'm sure that you've had a chance to see this now at this point. Kid, you are mentally weak. You are 10-ply Charmin soft. Grow up. I pity those kids who call you teacher at the elementary school down in New Mexico. Now, shout out to the guys down in Colorado Springs.
Why do you have to bring the
Battle
kids
MMA.
into it?
The kid's a punk. Zero respect for that kid. Looking right down the barrel so you know it was me who said it. Don't mistake it.
My comment on the whole situation is, hey, man, you made a bold choice with your music choice on the walkout. I Got Nerve by Miley Cyrus. Yeah, man, if you walk out to that, you got to do something different. That's all. But,
Can't tap to strikes the second time in a row.
But we also had a great UFC card.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, certainly. With as far as the UFC card, the main and the co-main, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, left a sour taste in a lot of folks' mouths for what was otherwise a really good card. Because if you look at it for what it is, all 10 of the other fights on that card were finishes, and all 10 of those finishers got a bonus. So, all the way around, that card was impeccable all the way up to that point by terms of traditional standards of Dana White himself of not letting things go to the cards. All of them except for the last 2 did.
Yeah. And those last 2, man, what a last 2 that those were, because that has huge implications on the light heavyweight division. And Patty pulls like such a huge amount of attention his way I mean, it also doesn't look great with the whole investigation. So you kind of wonder, like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, and I totally understand that, especially amidst the most, intense integrity investigation that our sport has seen so far. It doesn't look good in that sense. And now, I mean, I think it is a good thing that the news broke as I was coming over on the way to the studio today that the commissions are investigating Doug Crosby.
Which is also weird. Like, why would you have one judge fly in from the day before to work the very next event? Like, these are high risk games. You can't have someone who's a little groggy from a red eye. Like, no, I want someone who knows what he's doing, who's like alert, paying attention. Not someone's like, I'm tired, I'll half-ass it.
And also at that, and that's an incredible point just in terms of the mental acuity standpoint and being able to be a clear, objective judge. But throughout the course of his tenure as one of the three men sitting along cage side, controversy has followed Doug Crosby. So, like I say, that's going to be something that we're going to dive into a little bit later on into the program. But, Josh, if we look at the situation as far as the light heavyweight division goes, some people are going to ask, why did Jamal Hill get the title shot? But
why is that, Jordan?
I think it's actually when you put it on paper or when you put it in a linear sense, it's very understandable why Jamal Hill got the shot. Why? Let me explain real quick for you folks. Now, because the draw just simply happened to open the opportunity because Brazil still needed a main event. Big Marcel tweeted out a couple of weeks ago that on the big board there was still question marks for the pay-per-view main event for 283 ahead of Moreno and Figueiredo. That was something that, it left a lot of people, especially people on the inside, trying to figure out, who could the matches be? Because really, that only could have been one slot at that point. Like it's a title fight of some sort, and based off of who was available and what's not already booked versus who hasn't recently fought, the only one that it really seemed like that it could have potentially been was like a Valentina versus Amanda 3 situation down in Brazil. But obviously that wasn't the case. There was still a need to be filled right there in that fight slot. This just happened to be the perfect opportunity for them to add a title fight right then and there. I think that the UFC definitely stubbed their toe with the Glover situation. They received a lot of public criticism for the way that they treated him going into 282. Glover himself said this is kind of the universe correcting itself or the universe playing itself out, which I think that, in that sense, Glover gets to have that portion of his redemption arc with the title shot as well as the promotion. But on the flip side, you have Jamal Hill, who is the number 7 ranked guy who will be getting the title shot. But this is how the lay of the land looks at light heavyweight as it sits currently. Yuri is number 1 after vacating the title, but obviously he's unavailable. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this entire predicament. Glover, his dance partner, is number 2. Jan and Magomed are 3 and 4. Neither of them can or should turn around and fight for the title next month. Alexander Rakic and Anthony Smith are 5 and 6. Both are coming off of injuries and losses. So, by opportune circumstances and riding a 3 knockout streak, those being against former title challenger Thiago Santos, a highlight reel knockout of Johnny Walker, that's a knockout of the year candidate, and then he put out Jimmy Crute in the process, who was a surging prospect at the time. By all these opportune circumstances and the moment or the window of opportunity opening, shall we say, Jamal Hill gets that title shot. So should in this entire equation, though, if Glover loses and they don't get their feel-good story of Glover redeeming himself and becoming now the 2-time champion and so on and so forth, this is still a win-win situation for the UFC because should Glover fail, they now put the crown on a young American star who is charismatic, who understands the media and how to market himself, along with an entertaining style that is, as his name suggests, puts people to sweet dreams. Keep sleeping on me. I'll let the doctor wake you up.
I think that is the perfect way to put that. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And if he wins, maybe Anthony gets his fight that he was already booked for. How does the world work out? We're going to find out very shortly.
Definitely. But would you agree, though, that it's a win-win situation?
I think it's a
now at this
win-win
point for the
because
UFC?
you have either a new star emerge, which he's been sparking people, highlighting real people. And like you said, he's charismatic. He has a good character, and he's funny. He can speak well. And if Glover wins, he gets a swan song. How funny would it be if Glover decided to retire right after because a big final FU to the UFC for doing that to him?
Yeah, and
Would be hilarious.
Right back to a vacant title.
And we're right back to that.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows? But like we say, there was also on the Bellator side of things, we saw Patchy Mix go out there and
Looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, he put Magomedov to sleep. That was a guy who, outside of the kind of the stub in his toe to Benson in that fight, we hadn't really seen him have too many flaws in his game up to that point. He had pretty much ran the table without much resistance through whether it was with Eagle FC or with Bellator, aside from that other fight. But I mean, Patchy Mix is one of those guys who's not to be messed with when it comes to the grappling sequences.
No, he's very, very nice on the ground. And do we see Mix in the mix here shortly?
I mean, this propels him forward as far as as far as his standings within the division. So, I would have to think that this is something that is going to elevate him for that potential shot. Because correct me if I'm wrong, that was the semifinal, right, of the Grand Prix. So
yeah,
that then he's going to go on and face Rafion Stotts, which that fight with him and Danny Sabatello was like
happened exactly how I thought it would happen.
Yeah, and I mean Danny Sabatello, like you have to add some more tools to the game plan. Like you've allowed wrestling, pure wrestling and wrestling alone to get you all the way to that semifinal spot. But Josh, you have to do something with it. You can't just take someone down and hold them. You have to try to advance. You have to threaten submission. You have to at least, I mean, even if you're doing some Roy Nelson rabbit punches, just securing a position.
Got to stay active.
You've got to be active in some sort. And I don't know. Like I say, the kid can wrestle his ass off. He can wrestle all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, put him in the ringer and he will wrestle with anybody in those Bellator ranks. But you have to be, this is mixed martial arts. This isn't wrestling. You have to add more to it. And, I think that overall Rafion is the better or the more well-rounded fighter. I think his resume also speaks to that. His only loss in his entire career was to Merab, which it is now one of the top UFC bantamweights. So, if we're looking at the overall well-versed skill set, I think that Rafion was the better fighter, and I'm glad that he got the nod.
Yeah, I think he's a better fighter, and I think that, he has a really good shot at pulling this off. It's going to be a tough next fight, but see how
does the familiarity of him, should he win against Patchy, how much does the familiarity with him and Pettis potentially play into things?
Correct me, how many times they just fought once, right?
I mean, they trained together.
Well, that's correct. That's my fault. Yes, they train together. That's going to be huge. You got to see how that gym handles that as well. That's going to be, whew.
Yeah, I mean, and Rafion has shifted around a little bit, like since that point. But just, I mean, any time when you had guys who came up together or spent years together training,
well,
there's evolution, right?
There's evolution, and if they're gone long enough, like, no, they're not the same person. If they're doing the right things, it would be unfortunate if neither of them grew, which I don't believe that's happened. Each of them has probably developed
the
a new
big brother
game.
factor come into it at all?
I don't think so.
You think Rafion's too confident to allow that to take place?
Yeah, I don't. I think if you are fighting for a championship, you got to believe that that's yours. You deserve that. I don't think that's going to even cross his mind.
Fair play right
Changing
there.
of the guards.
You heard it right there from the Big Yins himself. Stick around after the break, folks. We're going to be talking this weekend's UFC card. It is the final one of the 2022 frame for the Crown Jewel promotion in MMA. I'm Jordan Kurtz, sitting alongside UFC middleweight Josh Fremd. This is the MMA Plug, presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. What is up, fight fans? Welcome back to the MMA Plug, presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz. Give me a follow along online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery, sitting alongside UFC middleweight, the Big Yins, Josh Fremd. Give him a follow at Josh Fremd MMA. Real quick, guys, check it out. This could be time that you could be using to advertise your business. Now, if you want to know more about how you can see your brand represented on the MMA Plug, go on ahead and slide in those DMs and give us a holler. That's me, Jordan Kurtz, at Comments from the Peanut Gallery, the Big Yins, Josh Fremd, at Josh Fremd MMA, or our buddies over at Denver Sports Betting, DenverSportsBetting.com. Reach out to them. This weekend, we have the final card of the year, Josh. Now, it's a main event in your division. This is between Sean Strickland and Jared Cannonier. This is rebooked from a while back. Sean Strickland had that gnarly finger injury, but
That was wild.
yeah.
That was wild.
Sean Strickland in general, wild dude, just wild dude. As we take a look at this matchup, Josh, what are your thoughts?
My first initial thought from this is, has Strickland recovered from Poton? Because that dude hit him so hard. I'm just interested in, that was only in July. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. But I think that this is going to be...
Yeah, it's not like Sean has taken hard rounds off since it.
Exactly. I'm sure he was right back in the gym the very next week. So not that I know that, but I think this is going to be a fun fight for a while. I think we're going to see Strickland, kind of try and put a pace on, but I honestly just feel like Cannonier is going to mollywop him. You don't hear that word very often, mollywop.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because I think Sean is the more technical boxer out of the two of them.
Yeah.
But Jared has that power. I mean, being that he was one. So when we're looking at it from a historical perspective as well, Sean moved up to middleweight from welterweight, where he first entered the UFC. Jared Cannonier entered the UFC as a heavyweight, and still came down to middleweight.
Kills me every time I see his hot knockouts at heavyweight. It's just, I'm like, that's the same dude.
It's just crazy,
That's
looking
wild.
at the pictures. I can't remember which Instagram account it is that's been posting the when they first entered the UFC to their current photos. That's been doing it recently. I can't remember which one it is. It's one of the bigger accounts out there, maybe MMA Ancestors or something. I don't remember which one, but they're showing those progression shots, and they showed Cannonier at heavyweight, light heavyweight, and then down at middleweight now. Just like it's crazy because he almost looks like he was 10 years older when he was a heavyweight.
Yeah, that'll do that to you. When you get in shape, you look younger. Not saying that he wasn't in shape as a heavyweight. I'm just saying, when you clean up some things and you eat different, you look a lot younger.
Yeah, certainly. But Josh, so you're favoring the knockout on this one. Is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah, I could see it. I could see it. I think that from what Strickland has put out there is, he gets into wars all the time in the gym, and I don't know. The older you get, I think the more damage you take outside of the ring plays a huge factor inside the ring. So, I'm favoring that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that's understandable. It's battle for king of the middleweights out there in the desert. Jared Cannonier training down in Arizona with Sean Strickland being a Vegas guy. I don't know. I'm not in love with either pick in this one, to be completely honest, because for all the reasons that you mentioned, Jared can definitely do it, and I think if Jared Cannonier does win, it's by knockout.
Yeah.
But if it gets past, I would say if it gets past 2.5 rounds, I think that it's Sean's fight.
I mean, I definitely can see Sean jabbing his way to a decision victory for sure.
Mhm. And I mean, dare I say, maybe even with it being a main event, a 5-round fight, dare I say, a late stoppage for Sean potentially, just by volume in the end. Just by at that, for lack of a better sense, just straw breaking the camel's back at that point, just being a volume guy and putting it on him enough to a breaking point potentially.
I could see that. I could see that for sure.
And like I say, it's because Sean's also, I mean, to be fair, Poaton's the only one who's done it like that. So it's not like he's easy to put out. But if we're being fair, I mean, he's done that to everybody.
Yeah.
When we look at it from that perspective, though, too, you always have said it just as I have. Who you've lost to matters.
Yes.
And in that sense, if you rolled the dice and got into a firefight with the pound-for-pound hardest-hitting guy on the planet, and you ended up counting the lights, well, who else didn't?
I mean, in Pereira's case, for sure, who else hasn't seen that? So,
right. Former champion Israel Adesanya included.
Yeah, no disrespect. That's a complete, that's just from the fan side of me asking. As the fighter side, you stepped in the ring with an absolute killer.
Oh, yeah.
So, nothing against him. But I do see this one playing out for Cannonier. Just if I were a betting guy. Not saying I am, but if I were a betting guy.
All hypotheticals.
These are all hypotheticals, and I do not gamble. Ever.
In the co-main event, we have the number 9 lightweight Arman Tsarukyan taking on the number 12 Damir Ismagulov. Arman is 18-3 at just 26, and he's been in there with the likes of guys like the champ Islam Makhachev. He lost a nail biter to Mateusz Gamrot just a little bit ago. He's right back in there with a killer that seemingly is a boogeyman that nobody really wants to step in there with, because he's just he's a hard out. He's a tough fight in Damir Ismagulov. He's 24-1. He's coming off that razor thin split decision with Guram Kutateladze. But Josh, as we come into this matchup, how do you what?
Just the fluidity of how you're saying these guys' name is just absolutely phenomenal. Can we just give a hand? Good job, Kurtzy. You're doing so well at this. All right. I am a huge fan of Arman. I think that all of his fights have been exciting. I think that he has a huge potential. He has a huge ceiling, and I think that he could make a run eventually. I truly don't know too much about Damir, but I've watched a couple of his fights leading up to today, and wow, that guy can fight.
Oh yeah, it's one of those fights that, Josh, really and truly, it can go either way. This is one of them that, because there's still a little bit of a shroud of mystery to Damir Ismagulov too, right? Because we haven't seen him with some of those top tier, top ranked guys yet, so we don't really know what he is at that point or that level yet. We know that he's good, right? But how good is he?
Yeah.
Especially at 31 years old. Whereas on the flip side, you have Arman Tsarukyan, who at 26 and already being in there with guys like Islam, and not having the fear to go in there and throw down with somebody like Islam. That, to me, also says something that this kid is building something for himself in the long term. He's a bright prospect, I feel like. Shout out to Dapper Media out there, because he's a big Arman Tsarukyan guy, and I'm gonna have to give him the nod this weekend.
I like it. Are you going to finish or a decision?
I'm riding money line on this. I think that either guy, if we're being real, has the potential to finish each other just based off of their resumes. But I think that the strength of schedule favors Arman Tsarukyan, and he is still got much more of a ceiling, I believe, just being that he's younger and that he has competed with some of the likes that he has. So I'm gonna have to. It's a pick 'em for me. Like I say, it's a pick 'em, but I'm gonna roll with Arman.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll right with you. I think Arman got this.
And then as far as any fights on the card that might be catching your eye or anyone that's popping off to you, I mean, I know there's one that I'm sure you're sure is worth mentioning here.
There is one worth mentioning, and we both want to give a huge shout out to Cody Brundage. D8. You guys will tell you a story about that later. He's stepping in short notice to fight Olajejczyk. How do you say that? His last name?
Yeah, it's Polish. Michael, our buddy who just fought Dustin Jacoby a little while back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that guy.
We'll roll with it.
We'll roll with it. I thought he was going to help me, but he didn't. All right. After I just gave you...
You set me up and then you fumbled it. You put it on a tee and swung and a miss. But shout out to Cody.
Shout out Cody. He's stepping in. He's on a 2-fight win streak. I think that this is a great matchup for him stylistically. And, hey, momentum has a thing. It's like a snowball and an avalanche. It's just going downhill. And once you get that momentum going, Cody's looking like an absolute stud in the gym, just absolutely phenomenal. So I'm excited to watch this one.
Operation Make Cody Jacked again worked.
It kind of worked. He was small for a little bit, but I think he did the right things, and he is once again jacked.
Yep, yoked. As far as for me, that's sticking off the page, or a matchup that I think is a fan's delight, and it's gonna be a striker's delight for the most part, because I don't think either one of these guys is gonna look to take the action to the ground. I think that they're gonna both stand there and throw down until somebody falls. That's Drew Dober taking on Bobby Green.
That is a banger.
What an incredible fight. I mean, Drew Dober from Elevation Fight Team, one of the just most genuine guys out there in the fight game overall. I mean, such a nice guy. Anytime you meet him, always a really genuine person. And then Bobby Green on the flip side. Bobby is as clean cut and as like picturesque and just like the greatest jawline in all of MMA that Drew Dober is. Bobby on the flip side, like I love Bobby's look too. Like Bobby comes in, like Bobby's a G. You know what Bobby's going to be.
Not giving up.
Oh, hair
on the radio.
A tattooed hairline along with his serrated beard line, iced out all the way that everything flooded. Bobby is the man. You gotta love Bobby.
Bobby is the man.
You have to love Bobby Green. I mean, he is coming back from the USADA vacation for the tainted supplement, but that's or it was something he got something from a GNC or whatever it was. That's why it was only a 6-month situation. But yeah, that's because remember he was supposed to fight Jim Miller back in July.
Yeah.
So now he's back and he's ready to roll off of that situation. Then you have Rafa Garcia from Elevation, and then in terms of another fight that to me I think is interesting it's a featherweight matchup. It's between Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres. He's taking on Julian Erosa.
That's going to be an exciting fight.
Just a couple of vets
Juicy J.
who two also former Ultimate Fighter vets at that, but guys who have been there, done that, around the block a time or two, and it's going to be just an interesting fight for me, I guess, from the veterans' perspective.
I think it's going to be a banger, and I'm excited to watch that one.
Absolutely. And is there any other fights aside from Cody's that are sticking out to you?
There is, only because I thought it was... I don't even know if I want to say the last name because I'm just not going to pronounce it correct. But, we'll go with this one. This one's better. I actually like this one a lot more. Jake Matthews versus Matthew Selmsberger.
Semmelsberger?
I said that, right? We can play. That's what I said, right?
Yeah, so, little yins on it.
That's going to be, honestly, a fun fight at the welterweight division. Both guys go out there each time and throw down. And, I've watched both of them leading up to this, so I think it's going to be a fun one to watch.
That's a great one to watch. And then I think that there's going to be a banger matchup in the bantamweight division. You have Said Nurmagomedov taking on Said Yakub Kakramanov.
That's called Jordan flexing because that was the fight I wanted to say, but I didn't say it because I couldn't say it.
I had an idea which one he was going to run with. I just looked down the run, and okay, this is going to be the two names that are the hardest to say that might hold up my big friend over here. So, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and we're going to soft toss that one that we missed on the tee with earlier and tee away, my friends. But Stick around after the break, folks. We're going to be running through a couple of topics that have us feeling a couple of type of ways and then closing out the hour by going 3 rounds. I'm Jordan Kurtz. You can give me a follow along online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery, sitting alongside UFC middleweight The Big Yin's Josh Fremd. This is the MMA Plug presented to you by differentsportsbetting.com on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. Welcome back to the MMA Plug presented to you by differentsportsbetting.com on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz, sitting here alongside UFC middleweight The Big Yin's Josh Fremd. We are going to dive into a couple of our flagship segments here, but they're on some hard-hitting topics that have the entire MMA community feeling some type of way. Josh, let's take a trip into Fremd's feelings. What do you got this week?
Kurtzy, we used to talk, well, we still do, but we mentioned this in the previous 100 because today's 101 episodes.
Stunt 101.
Nah, 101. But I told you they were going to be here. I told you eventually they were going to make it. And it's going to be a scary time for, I believe, human evolution. And I think that last Saturday, Kurtzy, they're here. I told you they were coming. This is the first wave of them. And if you guys are wondering, what I'm saying is that it's the kids. The guy's barely 18 years old. He's still in high school. Raul Rosas Jr. made his UFC debut Saturday at 18 years old. You know he was taking an algebra test last week? Yeah, he got out of school. He was hey, Mom, did my algebra test. Can I fly to Vegas and fight someone for a lot of money on a pay-per-view on an ESPN like Tiger Woods and his daddy? Like, that's absolutely crazy. You know what I was doing when I was 18? Not fighting on ESPN. That is absolutely crazy. He's going to go to school. He probably went to school Monday, had all the chicks loving him. He was probably the coolest kid at school.
Imagine if he actually still went to
if he actually went to high school. Yeah,
with him, he went to homeschool model now this year with just being able to train more. But can you imagine coming back to high school that next week? Like, buddy,
you couldn't tell me nothing, dude.
Tell me nothing.
Teacher. Hey, teacher.
Nah.
I could beat your ass. What are you gonna tell? I can't go to the bathroom. Oh, I forgot to do my homework. You're going to get me in trouble. I could beat you up. What are you talking about? And all right, away from the funniness, now to the realness. The way, I'm not taking anything away from Perrin, Jay Perrin, I forget his name. Jay Perrin. He was winless in the UFC coming into this, 0-3, I believe. And this was an obvious, hey, that you got to take this fight. You have no choice. And this kid came out. And I say kids sometimes when I'm talking about young people, but this literal kid came out and manhandled a grown man. Like, the way he lifted him up and put him on the canvas, I was like, whoa. They're here. They're here, and I'm telling you, this isn't going to be the first 18-year-old that gets here. They're all already...
He's still raw.
He's still raw. And I think that, we're probably never going to see a 16-year-old in the UFC. I guarantee. I think that's legally. I don't know if we can do that, but it's good. That's a horrible comparison that just came in my mind. But right when you turn 18, you could probably just set a date. I'm going to fight on this day in the UFC. I'm 17. I'm just turning 18. I think Kurtzy just figured out what I was thinking about. But it's just going to be one of those things that we're going to see more of these kids who have had the training since they were 5 years old, 6 years old. He had his first MMA fight at 8 years old. Mm-hmm. He said, no protective gear, just 4-ounce gloves.
Yeah, and I also think that to a certain extent, the 18-year-olds or those guys around in that time frame at the UFC level will be still few and far between, but will we see more?
We're going to be seeing more of them.
Yes, but there is to a certain extent, the physical aspect is going to come into play with a lot of kids for the most part. I think it's not to slight them or what their technical skill may be, but when you're talking, you're going to go and you have somebody like Matt Brown going in there and
But
you're
that's
gonna
what I'm
have a
saying.
kid
I'm
like
not
that,
saying
like
I'm not saying that they're gonna make it to top 15, top 10
Right.
immediately. I think that it's gonna be a growing thing. I think.
But I'm just saying,
like-
you go and you take a young kid like that and you put him in there with just a punishing vet of. And
Danny,
we're not
did
even
you
talking-
see that tweet last night of that 12-year-old football player who won Most Valuable? Dude
Yeah,
had
no
a
way
mustache.
No way that guy's 12.
There's zero
Dude had a
chance.
mustache.
He also has tattoos from his wrist to his elbow. There's no
Yeah.
chance that dude is, that's like what's that? What was that school? Bishop Gorman, or which was the one that got busted for?
Bishop Gorman.
Bishop Sycamore. I think.
Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Bishop Sycamore. Yeah, that's what that was like. Danny Almonte. That's coming back from our era with the baby Bronx Bombers. That's a kid who was nowhere near that age. That's that Cuban cocktail telling people that you're 40, but you're really probably like 55.
But anyway, I think that take it away from the physical aspects now. Like I'm really feeling this week here. Take away the physical aspect. I did that walk, and I can only speak from my personal experience. Okay, I had a co-main event spot on ESPN. I got to walk out in front of a sold-out crowd in Jacksonville. Absolutely one of the greatest moments of my life to date. He's 18 years old experiencing that. Now, I've had experience walking out in stadiums. I've had experience walking out in bigger crowds, and I've also had the smaller crowds. This kid handled it all with such poise that you don't see from an 18-year-old. Like maybe, yeah, on a football team, on a sport where it's not just singular focused on you, but with all those lights, all those cameras, all that pressure, the kid handled it amazingly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you have to give him his flowers and give credit and respect where respect is due.
Stop hating on the kid.
Yeah, I mean he went in there and he got to win and he got to finish. What else do you want? Like I feel like it's not going to be an easy road in the division that he's in, and I don't think that in the long run, I don't think he'll stay at bantamweight. I think he'll ultimately become a featherweight.
He's not even a man yet.
Exactly. Like he's 18 years old, and it's only foreseeable that he's going to put on a little bit more man muscle through time.
Yeah.
So
And if the UFC handles it correctly, if they match him well and they give him time, like he's not if he's not immediately like jump back in, yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree there. If we switch gears here and go over into Kurtzy's corner, judging once again leaves us disgusted, and in a couple of instances this weekend, it was the same judge twice. As we mentioned earlier, Doug Crosby was one of the judges for the Rafion Stotts versus Danny Sabatello fight Friday night for the Bellator title, a fight in which he was the dissenting judge of a split decision in which he scored the fight a 50-45 for Sabatello. Then, less than 24 hours, he was across the country scoring the Patty versus Jared Gordon fight. Now, for years, Crosby's decisions have been under fire, but because the judges are more protected from having to answer their questions than the freaking White House, then the wake of bad decisions amidst the biggest integrity-based investigation into our sport continues. Don't worry about James Krause. Worry about the damn judges and their upholding of the integrity of our sport, because guys like Crosby are certainly cause for concern. Now, the thing is, we can puff our chest and get blustery about it all that we want, but in all reality, the high likelihood is that nothing will come of it. I have been on record now multiple times calling for reform, along with proposed solutions. But I'm sounding like a broken record at this point, basically. Listen, the Patty decision was bad. Let's not get it twisted. There's no way around it. It was a horrible decision, but we're kidding ourselves if we're going to act like this is the worst decision in this quarter alone, much less the whole year or history of the UFC. Now, Ron McCarthy, Big John's son, was a judge for this fight, and Big John spoke to it on the Weighing In podcast, and he said that he told his son flat out that he got it wrong. Big John also made the statement, which I definitely agree, that in this particular situation, that there's a strong likelihood that the crowd played a subconscious influence in the decision factor for the judges, especially within that first round. Now, it's no secret at this point that Patty is a needle mover and he is a lightning rod of energy for the crowd. Whenever he did anything on Saturday night, the crowd gave him a huge pop. You don't see all of the angles as a judge. You only see from your vantage point, and if the crowd popped to something that you might not have seen clearly, that might have resonated a little bit with you as you went to then go put pen to paper with your score. It would be extremely difficult to enforce this potential solution to that in a uniform fashion worldwide, but I'm not opposed to the idea of removing judges from cage side and giving them monitors in a sound isolated room or a remote location. But this also isn't a solution that doesn't come without flaws, because while it solves the potential influence or bias based on the crowd in commentary, it takes away the opportunity to be able to see and hear things in the fight that you only get by being cage side. Now, on this program, we've talked about open scoring. We've talked about the half-point system. We've talked about adding more judges. We've talked about adding in a remote judge and various other potential solutions to scoring and judging. However, that is all just lip service until we get action from the government, which is to actually then implement change through the state commissions. If we can enact change to the system itself, if we cannot enact change to the system itself, then why is it so much to ask that these judges who get to have zero accountability currently, why not make it so that they should have to face the media, or at the very minimum submit a report that explains their work? Why does everybody else have to face the press and face the media, answer questions, except for Larry, Curly, and Mo sitting cage side? Just please make it make sense. Why can we not ask for transparency from the officials? Josh, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
I just have something that I was browsing Twitter, and I haven't been on Twitter today, so I was just looking at it, and I found something kind of interesting about it. Hawani retweeted it. But a statement from Mike Mazzulli, who's the president of ABC and the head of the Mohegan Sun Commission, on Doug Crosby's 50-45 scorecard for the Sabatillo and Stotts fight, is summed up is he made the statement that in an effort to make this a learning moment, I have informed all three judges we will be reviewing the fight together. So I think that this is kind of a good step in the right direction. Like, maybe nothing's going to happen, but maybe this is the start to, hey, come here. Let's watch this together. Is this what you saw? Explain yourself. Obviously, it's going to be in private first, but I think eventually we'll get to the point where I think that the judges should also go to the post-fight press conference. Like, what did you see? Because what you and I saw when we were at Colorado Combat Club sitting cage side is way different than what other people see. And I think that if other people can see it, you should be able to see it at a more advantageous position when you have a monitors and a visual in front of you. And I think that you should have to answer to it.
Certainly. Well said right there. Stick around after the break, folks. We're going to be going 3 rounds to close out the hour. This is the MMA Plug, presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. We have the great and powerful Danny Bailey behind the glass, sporting a new look.
New dude, Pitton taking out Danny. Danny, let me see the new one. Let me see the new
rip
fade.
and roll for 3 rounds.
I've been wearing the hat all day. It's a mess.
We'll see it after the show.
All right.
Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell took his first official loss last weekend versus Ilya Topuria. In a statement on social media following the fight, he said he had the flu the week before and blamed that for his performance. What do you think of that statement or excuse?
I think it's just that. Like, it's an excuse. Like, that's I don't know. Like, I love Thug Nasty, love Bryce Mitchell, but kind of a bad look.
Have you ever had the flu, Jordan?
Yeah, I have, and I understand, but just the overall thought, or just he's usually like warrior, like honor code type of guy. Like it just wasn't your night.
No, and I get that. I don't feel like maybe it's an excuse at all. I can understand it. I can I get it. You didn't have your best performance. I don't think he's acting out of pocket or anything to make it like, oh, hey, you're just making excuses. I think he just said something. It is what it is, and I think we're going to see Bryce Mitchell back in there thug nastying it up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Gotta love the kid.
Darren Till is looking at another lengthy absence from the octagon after tearing his ACL again last Saturday. Has the fat lady sung for the former title challenger?
I think not just as sang, but as far as being a title contender, she's yodeling.
You can all get it.
Yeah, I mean, God, we
That
talked about it
sucks.
last.
He had
I loved that Darren Till. Like that Darren Till was so exciting. He had so much promise. He is that cautionary tale, though, of being pushed too soon, because he was on a very steep vertical ascent, and then they kept on feeding him killer after killer, and then just through time, I mean, he's in that tweener size too, right? Like he's a little bit too big for welterweight, a little bit too small for middleweight.
Perfect candidate for 195.
195.
Yeah, 195.
195. Yeah, bump him all the way up. But yeah, that's what I think there.
After last weekend's performance, how do you think the sparring match between Paddy Pimblett and Jake Paul would have gone?
I'm going to go out on a limb here, lad, and I'm going to say that it's Jake Paul probably would have sparked him.
Scouser would have got knocked out.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you're a grappler. You're not a striker. And the striking that we've seen is still not clean. So I do think that if it's a straight boxing match, hey, you're going to earn your $1 million, buddy.
That problem child's going to be a problem.
But if he's giving me $1 million,
step right in. And just like that, folks, we are all out of time. We want to thank you all so much for tuning in. Let us know what you think. Hit us up on social media. That's me, Jordan Kurtz, at Comments from the Peanut Gallery, or Josh at Josh Fremd MMA. If you have any heaters that you're looking at this weekend, go ahead and send those my way. Steer those clear of Josh's DMs. But
I do not gamble.
I'll be happy to cash in on this one last weekend there of the show.
Boss, I hope you're watching. I don't gamble.
We want to give an extra special thank you to our man, Danny Bailey, behind the glass, always holding it down for us. Thank you to Ryan Garcia with DenverSportsBetting.com. And again, thank all of you for tuning in each and every week and making this last 101 episodes of this show so special. I'm Jordan Kurtz, sitting here alongside UFC middleweight, the Big Yin's Josh Fremd. This is the MMA Plug presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. That helps us continue to produce this original MMA content and bring it for you every single week. Tune in to the MMA Plug presented by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM, Mile High Sports Radio on Wednesday nights from 6 to 7 p.m.
or live stream at DenverSportsBetting.com/radio.